Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another
Hello,
stream. Hey, Ace, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, you already changed your name to say Wale. Oh, so I should say, hey, Wale.
Hello, Rizel.
Awesome. All right, so y'all, welcome back. I see there's like a few viewers now, so I'll just say, hey, feel free to like type in the chat like where you're tuning in from, anything that you got going on today. Really interested in you. Really quickly before we do like who's today's guest is, which I'm super excited about. I do want to like just give y'all a little bit of a breakdown of what some topics are or what some definitions are. I remember last stream a lot of people were like, I don't know what these words are. What are we talking about? So I'm just gonna quickly share my screen so you all can just get like a brief intro, brief glossary of what everything is. Let me do present. Hey Angie, let's do this. All right, so just so people are like, hey, we don't know what decentralized identifiers are or decentralized web nodes. Really quickly, Web 5 is basically an ecosystem. This is how I would describe it, an ecosystem to build applications that prioritize data ownership and user privacy. If you hear us say the word decentralized identifiers, basically every person in the Web 5 ecosystems has one. It's a W3C open standard. They're based on cryptographic principles, and basically they give you access to something called a decentralized web node. And they're also represented as an alphanumeric string, so they'll often start with like DID, the method that you're using, and then like an identifier, so it might just like have letters and numbers in it. And then decentralized web nodes are basically like a personal data store. You can think of it similar to Dropbox, but like unlike products like Dropbox, where like terms of service may change or your access to data or whatever. In with decentralized web nodes, you have like control of who gets access to your data. So that's all. And if people have like more questions as we go on, feel free to put in the chat like, hey, I don't understand this, and we'll stop and explain. But enough talking from me. I wanted to introduce our guest today is Zeta. Hey Zeta, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Not too
I'm
shabby.
good. Would you say you said
That's
not
good.
too shabby, Ace?
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you on, Zeta, because I like Angie was like recommending you. Like she talked really well about you, and I watched the video that you did on decentralized identifiers. So I'm excited to learn from you. I was curious, could you feel free to, or could you please just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi all, I'm Zeta. I've been working as a data scientist for the past, 4.5 years. I joined Danube Tech. We're based in Vienna, Austria, about 2 years ago. I've also worked in the healthcare sector and in a corporate, and now I'm also on an entrepreneur journey from this talent investor program, Entrepreneur First. I'm currently based in Paris, but I'm from the Netherlands originally.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
you
as
do
you.
a lot. I have a lot of questions because I looked at your LinkedIn. I know like you're a data scientist, you're a founder, you're a machine learning engineer. Um, how do all of those things work together for you, or like how did you get to be all of those? That's a lot of like role
Yeah.
titles.
Before
Yeah.
before you
So,
answer real quick, you also mentioned that you work in hospitality for like 5 years. So it's like,
oh, that was when I was, I mean, as a student, right, to get like a bit of
oh,
extra money in. So that I did. I'm currently not, but I think that's actually a place where you learn a lot of things, especially working hard because you have to focus on 20 things at the same time, and
Mhm.
customers king. So that's learned that the hard way, so to say. But yeah, right after hospitality, I did like work I got educated for. And I think it started with work as a data scientist. I I realized when I did my first job that looking at all these data sets and looking at data is just, it can be used in very many malicious ways. And I was a bit concerned. So this new identity, digital identity space, I mean, it's not too, it's relatively new. got me hooked because it's all about privacy enhancement and increasing safety. So that's why I switched from doing this like vanilla data science work to more other work, like trying to protect the user and giving back ownership. And I don't know, I really love the space. It's also a bunch of just nerds, I would say, that have a dream to make the internet a better place. So I can really align with that. However, I have a master's degree in computational sciences, so my heart is also a bit at mathematics and applied mathematics, and how can we apply mathematics to computers. So especially now also with the AI trend that's going on, I didn't want to miss out on the newest techniques, and why I started as a freelancer on the side. So like machine learning engineer, that's where that came into place. And while doing that alone, next to a like full-time 40-hour job, I just thought of, okay, what is the best thing I can do? I'm alone, I'm young, I know that. Even though I have some experience, I do not have 20 years of experience. So what is the best thing I can do? I can either dive into the latest tech. I can either go to conferences and like increase my network, or I can just do projects for the sake of doing projects and get money in. But all of that did not really appeal to me. So I was more on the quest of finding a co-founder. And that's how I came across this talent investor program, because it was all about finding your co-founder. So that's how I ended up in Paris, still working for Deniptech, and doing machine learning engineering on the side.
I love to see it.
That is such an exciting journey.
Yeah.
It goes all the way, all different directions.
No, I mean, I love to see people make sure that they're like tapping into all their skills and stuff like that. So I think this is exciting. I'm excited to see like whatever you end up building as a founder. And I think it was smart for you to like do machine learning as freelancing on the side, because you know the AI boom. I think you kind of like touched on like getting into data, being a data scientist within like the decentralized identity realm.
Yeah.
Can you really tell me a little bit more about like what attracted you to like the decentralized web? And then I never even considered, since I'm new to the decentralized web, I never even considered the fact that there's data scientists doing work.
Yeah. I have to say also, it feels like really as if I'm a bit of the odd one out, because it's mostly software engineers, especially when I go to all these the tech conferences. It's always either like policymakers or software engineers, or more that side of the tech. So the data scientists or data analytics people are quite like in a minority there. But what attracted me really was this bringing back ownership. And there's a lot of discussions I had with people that do fraud or create fraud detector systems. And I actually believe that it's trying to solve a problem which is already there, and it's not really taking the root cause of the problem. Whereas I feel that decentralized identity will help with that, right? Is a completely new technology. The problem I do feel there is that you have to convince tech that like to change or to integrate decentralized technologies into their current solutions. But I feel like this is actually taking or attacking the problem, or taking the problem at the root cause. So that's what I found super interesting. It's a complete new view on how can we make systems better and more secure, more safe, and increase and enhance privacy. And what I'm doing as a data scientist, it actually comes back, or it boils down to more the data analytics. So we at Deniptech, we're all about decentralized identifiers, as you explained in the beginning, and we basically look at data, or basically decentralized identifiers from different ledgers. So it's all public. Everyone essentially can take the data, fetch the data, and put it into some Excel sheet and analyze it. But since we have the data, this was what we did. And I came as a data scientist, so as I was saying, like a black sheep of the family. And Marcus Sabadello, the founder of Deniptech, was I think he saw like a gap, because no one has ever analyzed and published the data of decentralized identifiers. So that's what we did, and that's how me as a data scientist, how I came came into place and came into this field. So
Yeah, that is actually very exciting because the
yeah.
first time you mentioned that you were doing data analysis, I was quite curious, and I wanted to
Mhm.
ask because I'm not sure if it applies, but like for example, with the decentralized web, we have like decentralized web nodes, and of course, like
Yeah.
you mentioned specifically decentralized identifiers. I was
Mhm.
curious as to maybe like more practical angles, like maybe it could be like a day-to-day stuff, but how does like your data analysis apply to DWNs if you ever work with them? Or how does it like
Mhm.
is it like just you doing analytics majorly on like the identifiers specifically? Just to have a better understanding of
Yeah.
that kind of
Well,
process.
yeah. So now the analytics is, I mean, there's also debate here because ideally we want to have the centralized systems to not be able, like, not give the
Yeah.
big control to the tech or like I don't know, like whatever company there is like in charge of it. So the whole reason for decentralization is also not to make this analysis possible. So there might be a bit of a
Mhm.
right two side of the coin. But what you can analyze, and it's not privacy sensitive data, right? So what you can analyze is maybe like what kind of endpoints are used or what are like everything that's in a DID document. So if you have a DID which is tied to a DID document, then the service endpoint can be is written down in the document, and that the document and the DID itself that's stored in our database, and that's something we could analyze. So we could see is updates going on these DID documents, or are people changing endpoints quite often? If they do, where, when, how? So it's rather,
I
I'd
see.
say, behavior rather than really privacy sensitive data.
Mhm.
I mean, this is it should also be within the blockchains and within the ledgers that people do not put privacy sensitive data on ledgers and blockchains in the first place. So that's also maybe a tool in which AI can come into place. Like, hey, can we search a blockchain and a ledger and make use of AI such that privacy sensitive data can be detected and give a warning if this happens, and that can maybe integrate into a system. So that's more where AI could come into place. Yeah.
That is amazing because I think it basically helps shape like improvements for the entire infrastructure technology and just seeing how
Mm-hmm.
people use it in any areas to improve upon. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I'm
Yeah.
hearing about it anyways, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. So how many people are really, maybe you probably know better, how many people are using those decentralized web nodes? That's not something I could see. I could check the like how often the centralized web node endpoint is used. But right, if people for some reason change their endpoint or change their cloud provider or something, then there might be a reason for changing the endpoint. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something we could analyze. Yeah.
Wow, my mind is blown thinking about all the opportunities. Oh, this is good. I really hope to see like this space grow with like the data on the data analytics side because there's a
Yeah.
lot that you could do from what
Yeah.
you said. Wow. I want to quickly highlight just people in the
Mhm.
chat. I love to like make sure that I'm talking with them.
Mhm.
So we have Marianne that said another Dutchie.
Yay.
And then Laura said hi, and she also like commented on your career path, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Gerald is saying like this agreed. This is a different paradigm, one where our secrets are not also our identifiers. Love that.
Mhm.
And Greg Kramer says, nice to see this topic becoming more mainstream. And I think when you were talking about like the different ways that you analyze DIDs and the opportunities that people can
Yeah.
have to like analyze DW ends, that's when
Mhm.
Angie said that's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
Now I want to know a little bit before you like demo the project. I'm kind of
Mhm.
just curious about like how you would describe the project. What is it, and like
Mhm.
what technologies did you use to
Yeah.
build it, and all that.
Yeah. So, I would say at DeniTech we have two different products, and they work a bit like together. So the first thing we have is this platform in which you can create, update, and deactivate a decentralized identifier, and it's a SaaS platform. And because we have that, we also have another, I would say, feature on that, and that's a version tracker version service. And that tracks all of the decentralized identifiers from all over the world, and we stored it in our database. And with that, we created another platform, which is stats.godiddy.com. Everyone can check it out, but I should demo it later. And why we did that was because, well, we have all the data hanging around. Like we have the global decentralized identifier data. We're not going to show a subset. This is all the data. It's publicly available, but we have it. And therefore, we came to the idea of creating graphs. And I mean, I'm a data scientist, so I love graphs. So this is how I thought, okay, we can create graphs and we can present it at conferences. But how can we make it even more interactive or maybe more useful to people out there all over the world? So this is how we designed a dashboard out of it. So techniques that are used is, well, basically the decentralized identifiers that are on ledgers and so public ledgers and blockchains. Mostly decentralized identifier technologies. Yeah, I can deep dive into all the programming language that are used, but that's maybe not so.
No. That sounds great. Let's see a demo. I'm gonna add it to the stage. I'm super excited. I mean, I don't know if you were ready.
I'm ready. I hope this is I hope this is big enough, large enough.
Yes,
I can do it like this. Yeah. So this platform is the first platform I mentioned, and it makes it easy to create, update, and deactivate your decentralized identifier. It's called Godiddy.com. And what you can do, you can, for example, select a DID method. And for the ones that are very familiar with the W3C documentation, there are currently 180 DID methods out there. But we supported 12 or 15. So let's say you want to create a DID. Then you can update the DID document over here. You can also add a service endpoint. So for now, let's, of course, select a decentralized web node. And we can just have a test service endpoint. I don't know one on top of my head. We did have a decentralized web node running at Danube as well, but anyway, you also have to select a network. By default, this is the Danube network, and you can select. The screen is a bit too large. You can select on create. It will create a DID. Might take a while. So then here in the response tab, it shows the DID. And what we can do is we can resolve it. So it actually already showed it, but this is another feature of our service. So we can resolve the DID, and it shows the DID document in its standard format. So it refers to the W3C documentation. It shows a public key and the DID exactly here, the DID ID. You can update this as well. So you can select your DID. You can, for example, change the public key. Where is a public key? You can change it to 1, 2, 3. You can even add another service endpoint. Test. And it should update the DID in a second. Yep, we can resolve it again to check if the update was done correctly. Right, so if you remember, I changed the last 3 characters here in our public key. And you can also deactivate it. Not sure if you want to see that or if you believe me, but let's quickly do it. So it asks you, okay, do you really want to deactivate your DID? Yes, I want that. Okay. Oh. It does not want to.
Okay.
Does not want to do it. The driver does not allow. What I want to note here is that every DID method has a different way of deactivating so basically revoking your DID. So think for DID Indy, it's removing the public key. But for DID key, for example, we cannot really do that because it's locally. Now the driver does not allow for some reason. That's interesting.
That's all right. I feel like apps always don't want to work when we're demoing.
No, never when they want to, right? Usually we get this very cool message of your DID is deactivated. But what I want to point out actually is this whole database. So what I was mentioning before. So we have a database of all the DIDs. So let's say we can look at all the latest DIDs I think this is the one I just created, GMT+1. And this is all. I mean, you can look at different pages. So this is what we have. We have a database which contains all the DIDs from all over the world, from different DID methods and different networks. And then we created this website, stats.godiddy.com. And what it shows, I have to zoom out a bit. I hope that's
get smaller. That's okay.
Phone users. Okay, sorry, just a little bit. Hope it's fine. So on the right-hand side, it shows the cumulative counts of all the DIDs on different methods and on different networks. So here we see, for example, the purple line. I hope it's visible.
A little bit.
The DIDs, yeah, on this a bit dark. The DIDs on the ION, from the ION method on the test net network from the test nets. Sounds a bit weird maybe, but so what we see here is that there is a total of 350,000 plus DID transactions out there on the DID ION testnet. I can also up this one out. Where is it? There. So yeah, I mean, there's other networks that show much fewer transactions. And what do these transactions mean? Well, we included all of the DID transactions, and those are so all the DID writes. So that's when a DID is created, what I just showed you. When the DID is updated, so that's a new transaction, and when the DID is deactivated. And why did we create this dashboard? Well, first of all, we have the data. Second of all, this might be of interest to, let's say, method providers. So if you are CEO or CTO of Checked, you might want to know how your DID method is performing in comparison to other DID methods. Or if you are an application provider, like a wallet provider like Trinsic, how are the different DID methods used nowadays? Which DID methods are used mostly? Which DID methods are not used so much? So that might be interesting to your decision making of which DID method you should support. As I was mentioning before, there are 180 plus DID methods out there, so we cannot support them all if you are an application provider. In terms of a data scientist, you might want to know, can we find patterns or predictions or do predictions for DID usage over time? So to answer that question, we can have a look at this line here for the past year, for example, and we see that it's increasing. But this is all the test net. So this is not, no one is really earning money from this. But now we can go to the main net, and that's where people pay. So we do see, for example, an increasing line at the ION, all the DIDs on the ION mainnet network. It's, from a data scientist perspective, this is of course too little money. There's no seasonality. We see it's very hard to really make a conclusion here. But maybe if we have more parameters or more data, we can do some predictions and see if test net activity is a predictor for future mainnet activity. Then the last thing, what might be interesting, is seeing if somehow a release or somehow a change in the DID method or like the specification, if that somehow changed something. So here we see an increase in the DID ION method on the mainnet. And this is, what was it, between April and May 2022. So if there's anyone from Microsoft out there that is working with DID methods, tell me what happened here. But I did an analysis, I read an analysis on the, Microsoft Entra release. And there was a significant, significance found when, before and after the Microsoft Entra release. I'm not sure how valid that conclusion was, but yeah, well, this is I think the most interesting thing if people are using DIDs. We also have more in-depth knowledge, so that's really comparing different DID methods and different networks with each other. Let me go to so this is the checked DID method. Let me see, ION testnet, does it have? Okay, ION testnet is not really used in the last 30 days. So this is breaking down the transactions for the past 30 days. It also breaks down the transactions in like when was a create or when was an update or deactivate. So yeah, well, not so much in the last days. We also compare different networks. So we compare how the current network you're on, so IMAINnet, how that's doing in comparison to other networks. And we look at error rates. Here we see that all the DIDs on the IMAINnet, or almost all, have an error. I have to say there's no global standard or no gold standard for errors. So we defined several errors. 2 of them are defined here. So an error mostly was when, so we defined the error when it was not confirmed with the specification. And the specification of DID, so the DID core specification, says that a decentralized identifier always should have an @context field. And if it does not have an @context field, there's something wrong with the JSON LD. And since IAN does not have this by default, almost all of the DID IANs have an error. So yeah, I mean, it does not mean that the DID was not created or so, but it meant that it was not conform with the specification. Verification method. So the DID document has a verification method field, and it just tells you which verification method, which cryptographic algorithm was used for like verification. And there might be sometimes an error in this as well. I think I can show you here. So yeah, some people when using the IAN, when creating a DID IAN, use ED2 as a verification method. Well, that's not really a valid cryptographic algorithm. Or right, it's okay, these I don't know by heart, but often there's just something mistyped. So probably here the D should be capital, or yeah. JSON WebKey 2020, I think it's also supposed to be written differently. There was also this ED25519 is also not correctly written. So that's some of those DIDs out there do have the verification method error. And yeah, again, why do we do this? It's really, if you're a method provider, you just want to know, how is my IDIT method doing? Are people using it correctly or not? And if so, what is wrong? What's going on? And if you are an application provider, again, you might want to know, do I want to support a DID that contains errors or that has a JSON LD error, for example, or do I not care because maybe you just don't, it's not really that important that the @context field is missing. And for the verification method, again, maybe you want to have a very strict DID method that only allows 2 different verification method types, for example. So this INDBBU only has 1 verification method by default and there's no errors. But yeah, maybe you do want to have, for, I know, security reasons, multiple verification methods. So yeah, many incentives of why we did this, actually.
Awesome. We do have a bunch of questions, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Go ahead, Ace. I didn't know if you were okay.
Yeah, I think the first one, which is already answered by someone else in chat, was the difference between DIDs and those 2 keys? I think a very good answer here from Gerald. Thank you. It's a very similar concept, public endpoints that others can rely on to interact and stuff like that. So thank you, Gerald, for the answer, and Garrett, I hope that answers your question. We have another question actually related to the demo from Angie. And it says, how do you analyze changes on the DID document? Is it an issue of changes persisted somewhere? And she did a follow-up with, like, are these details of a DID transaction that persisted? Stuff like that.
So are the details of a DID transaction persistent? Do you mean,
so our first question is, how do you analyze changes on the DID? Yeah, so I think that's...
Yeah. Well, there's different versions of a decentralized identifier. So not sure if that answers the question, but let's say we updated the DID. So here we see the exact same DID, right? But it's twice in the DID document. Actually, it's multiple times in the version service. So the first time it's created, it's the first version, and you get a version ID and the version time, which is not a standard time format, but it's a different time format. So every time then an update is done, it has a new version ID. So this is like 234, and this is 2343. You see, so that is how you can keep track of the different versions of the different decentralized identifiers. I hope that answers that first question. Then the second question was, like, are there details of a DID transaction persisted? Removed ABC from service endpoints. Oh, okay. I'm not 100% sure if I get the question, but right. So every time when there is an update being done on a decentralized identifier, so you change that endpoint, so to say, it's another transaction on top of it. So in our database, it looks like just, let's say, another row, for example. So you create a DID, it's a row, and then when you create another DID, it adds to the database.
With a new version ID, right?
So yeah, new version ID, exactly. Yeah. So the DID is persistent. That's the beautiful thing of decentralized identifiers. You can the DID does not change. It's the exact same DID, the exact same string, the exact same URI. But as soon as something changes, you change the version ID, or it will be added to it as another row. I mean, I'm a data scientist, so I think in rows is probably it's not like that. And okay.
We have another question as well from Discord. How did you select the DID methods to track? Do you plan to integrate others? I think you mentioned there were like 180 registered as a standard. So how did you select them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now we just selected, I mean, for sure they have to be ones on the ones that are on public ledgers, because that are the ones we can track. And we just selected those that are, I think, most popular right now. It was a decision from higher management, I would say, from the founder, Marcus Savadello. So he selected the ones that are, I think, according to him, most popular. Has been in the field for 20 years. And everyone that wants to be on the platform can talk to him. So we do have, for example, some collaboration with other people that also want to be on the platform, and then we might install or integrate your solution as well, or your method as well on the platform.
That's cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we're still adding other DID methods to the platform. So yeah.
Gotcha. During your demo, you mentioned that this works a lot, like amazingly well for TID method creators, application developers. But I wanted to just double down on the question in terms of use cases and people that could just benefit the most from this project.
Who could benefit the most from the project?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's so from the stats at Godiddy, it's really people who want to integrate decentralized identifier technologies, like let's say those mentioning a wallet provider like Trinsic or Duwala, and they want to support decentralized identifiers, and they just don't know where to start. I know that the field is a lot of jargon, a lot of abbreviations, and I think this platform might help to give you a bit of overview on what's happening out there in the decentralized identifier space, and therefore business decisions can be made easier. So it really is like some sort of dashboard that contains all of it, and would help you when you have to make a critical business decision on what decision you would make. And I think again, method providers, it's just interesting to see if you should change anything into your specification or not, and to see how it's used in comparison to others. So it's everyone that has to do something with decentralized identifier technologies, or anyone that wants to integrate it to the platform might benefit from this. And then for Godiddy, it's actually the same. So everyone that wants to integrate the possibility of creating a DID or updating a DID into their platform, want to use this, can do that. So it's also, I know smart cities or identity and access management providers. I know banks that want to do something with this. So it's a broad scope.
Yeah, I could even see this being helpful. I mean, I don't know, but maybe it could be helpful to TBD, because I know we've been thinking about we use this DID method, maybe another DID method would be more helpful. So it would be cool to look at this and be like, people are using this one more, there's more activity. So that's really exciting. I'm also kicking myself because I'm I feel like I named this stream badly. I didn't realize how the statistics part worked of Godiddy. I like just tried out the like creating and updating DIDs part, and I was like, okay, cool. This is about like managing DIDs, but I feel like it's about so much more with the data analytics part too.
Yeah.
Would you say for like the creating and resolving and updating, like would an individual use that part at all, or only like a company? Would you? It doesn't seem that valuable for an individual.
No, exactly. It really is like, I think decentralized identifier nerds that really want to look at this and just try around, like play around, they might be interested in this, but it really essentially is more of a B2B kind of thing that we never do something for an end user. It's such an abstract level that it might be only of interest to people that want to integrate decentralized identifier solutions into their platform. So as I mentioned before, like smart cities or these identity access management platforms, people in the fintech industry, the universities that want to issue credentials and want to tie the decentralized identifier to it. That's it's more for those kind of people, right? Like, not an end user, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify. And then like this was a really amazing demo because I learned so much.
Thank
Like,
you.
it was really good. You like gave little tidbits. You're like, yeah, there's like 180 did methods. I'm like, I did not know that. That's a lot. I'm curious, do you all plan to add anything more to stats.godiddy? Like, are you planning to expose more data? Or is this like the final, like this is how it's gonna be?
Well, yeah, we got the question a lot, and also people are wondering if we could add the resolver data. So every time when people resolve DIDs, is there any data on that? The thing is that we want to keep it global, and using our data we have from our resolver is not global, right? That's only the data that people, the people that use our resolver, that's what we can show. So we thought of that. We thought of some other things. But yeah, this currently the state. What we do have, but that's also again more interesting for like enterprises, is a GraphQL version of this. So how can you use stats and how can you select the data and get like data sets out of it? So that's what we already have. It's in beta version now, but yeah.
That's exciting to
Yeah.
see. Ace, you have any more questions regarding the demo or thoughts? I don't know, before I move to the next question.
No, it was very amazing and educative as well. I learned a bunch, especially about the DIDs as well and how they work. So thank you very much.
I have another question on like, is this project open source? And if so, how can people contribute to it?
Yeah, so Godiddy is currently not open source. You can create a test user, and you can play around with it. But we set a limit for creating DIDs to, I think, 2 per month, and resolving also to I think 15, or I'm not sure about the numbers. Stats at Godiddy is open to everyone. You can look at it. I think really only if you have any ideas, if you think of, hey, that might be of interest to me, let me know, or write it in the comments. I'd be curious to know what people want to see and what people are interested in. There's always people who are asking like, oh, hey, can you analyze this? Or can you analyze the number of DIDCOM endpoints, for example? That's a question I got. Or the number of the size of the document. So I did a distribution for this person, but yeah.
And I think that's a fair way to contribute by telling you like feedback. That's a form of contribution.
Yeah.
I love this. This is so exciting. I'm just like, I like to see like, I think it is a good opportunity to see like what are other organizations doing outside of TBD with these technologies. It's like eye-opening for me. I'm curious too. Well, I might remove your demo. Not the demo, but the screen shares. But I'm curious too. I think you even like mentioned this earlier that like in your intro that like with the decentralized web, it's a little hard to get technologists to adopt this paradigm shift, this way of thinking. What are your thoughts on like how anybody can like how we can start getting the tech industry to start adopting this idea of data ownership and like user privacy and all that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting discussion, and I've talked about this many times, because it's all about market adoption in the end, right? So I think in Europe, we're doing quite well on like the government making a push forward. So there are these large scale pilots. There is, I mean, companies and startups funded by the EU to push decentralized identity or digital identity forward. And that's, I think, great. So there is then both collaboration between different startups, but also, yeah, I think the big sector that should move forward is in the end the government, because I think the government should have this consensus of, hey, we should protect our citizens and we care about privacy and we care about security. And I think that's what will happen in the next 2 or 3 years or so, right? There's already things going on with the EIDAS regulation. I think yesterday they finally came to an agreement there. So I think that's great. So the EU government is doing a lot of things to push this forward. And in order for other businesses to hop on, I think the EU just has to move this forward. So I think currently the private sector does not really feel an urgency to invest in this and to invest in security. And I think they do not really agree on, I mean, maybe they do agree, but it's probably not on their top priority list to invest in security and safety. So I think that, yeah, government ideally should move forward. I mean, yeah, the US is also like making steps, but I think Europe is doing a bit more now from the government sector, like the government. Yeah.
That's amazing. Any comments, Ace? It looked like you were thinking.
Yeah, it's just that was new information for me, so it's good to know. I've always known like Europe has very strict like data laws and very particular about it, but like it's also like new information and very good to know that that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I live in
I
Europe,
mean,
so I was like, oh, okay.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I'm not sure if you, I mean, as I was saying before, I was like, I'm a Dutch citizen, and
Yeah.
I moved to Austria. So I lived in Austria for 3 years, and now I moved to Paris. And that means that I had to create, I mean, I did have a Dutch government ID, but I had to create another one in Austria. And if I decide to stay long in Paris, I might have to create another one for France. I am the same person. I'm not changing, right? Like I'm just one, and I'm staying the same. Like I'm just moving around. And what is cool now, actually, in Austria, there's this thing called Handysignatur for the Dutch people. They know it's DigiD. For Belgians, it's called My ID, I think. So in every country, there's a different thing for actually the exact same thing, which is proving that you are you. And what I saw recently is that in Austria, they make it possible now to log in using EIDAS. So it gives you this opportunity or this option to log in using EIDAS. And ideally, every country in the EU will have that instead of this new government ID. So that's really exciting. That's like, oh, cool. People are really, I mean, government is really pushing this forward. And I think as soon as government is really making this a standard and having this integrated into these technologies the government is using, business will hop on as well. So that's very cool.
That's okay. Lots of cool stuff. One, I didn't realize that the EU was so like forward thinking in that type of space, but that makes sense. Like I feel like America's like their businesses are solely run on how they grab the data from us, and or they succeed because of that. And it's really exciting to hear that like there's this way that you can essentially take your identity with you, and like that's the whole thing, like that decentralization trying to like
interoperability.
That's so exciting. Like imagine you just have that ID and you don't have to like go get like a different green card. Greg,
I think what you just said kind of like connects to what Greg was saying, because decentralization just take a bit from the business models. So
I'm not sure also how many people were aware of this. When the DID core specification came out, I think it was about 2 or 1.5 years ago. It took a very, very, very long time for it to get like be accepted by the W3C like organization, because I think it was Apple, Mozilla, and Firefox that were actually fighting this because they were saying that it was not decentralized, and the fact that there were so many DID methods, or I don't know, there were like it was banned in the beginning by those 3 big corporates. And of course it means like, if you like shift from this like centralized systems to decentralized systems, a big business model is is broken down. So yeah, little drama.
Wow, that was cool because that was another thing. I was sitting here wondering, I'm like, how does this W3C really work? Did someone just go up to them and say, we need to like create a standard for DIDs or whatever? So that's interesting. That there was a little bit of drama between people.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, there is often a bit of drama because a lot of people are involved and everyone has to agree with like when a new working group is accepted or when new standards are being accepted. So it's not so easy or
And I also think it was a really like circling back to you bringing up the like government adopting it first. I do think that's a really good point because once the government, like what you're saying, like once the government prioritizes that almost pushes the other businesses to like have to start adopting that because that'll become the norm for users or people, and they're like, oh, why am I still having to go through this really annoying way to take my data or whatever? So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think also it's a bit from. So I think the government will have a big influence here, but probably also. I mean, I come from the tech part, like the tech side of this, and there's, as I mentioned before, a lot of jargon. It's a lot of things, a lot of technologies, a lot of DID methods. Also, the question is, why are there 180 DID methods out there? We don't need more DID methods. Or I never understood why people are building wallets. Like, I mean, there's also, I don't know, so many different wallets. So what the tech should focus on more is make it more explainable and make it easier. Try to educate people. Why do we care about this? Why do we want this? Rather than, oh, let's build another new protocol, like another new DIP method. I think that's not what we should focus on now. Probably, I think it's more on like, hey, why is this important? And try to explain it into easier language. Yeah.
I love that. Wait, first we got Greg with a little spicy take. Government adopting this is not a good idea. Sorry, not sorry. I respect it. And then
Why do you think so, Greg? If you could tell us, that would be great.
Yeah, sure about that. Right, and also then if you think no, then sure. But also like, who do you think which is like the first sector that should have a like push forward here? Yeah.
And I agree with you on the complexity of the terms and stuff like that. Even when like this is something I always say, like when people first came out with this idea of Web3 and blockchain, I'll be like, oh, explain it to me. What is it? And then they just tell me so many like random acronyms and like I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I have no understanding of like why I would want something like this. So I do think that's true. It's showing like why it will be applicable to people and like why it will be actually useful. Focus more on I even think that's kind of like why I'm like starting to decide to like bring guests on to this Twitch stream because like oftentimes it's me and Ace like learning stuff about Web5, but I'm like there's other people working on similar things within like our entire industry. Like there's Okta and Microsoft and your company, and I'm like, why don't we just like figure out like what are we all doing so we can figure out like how we can like merge all of this work into one rather than like working separately.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think it's great what you guys are doing, and it's really nice too. I mean, this is a way to make it more understandable to the public. Yeah.
100%.
I
think before we move on to the other sections, I don't know if there are any additional questions from the audience. That would be great. Good time to ask, if any.
Yeah, pop them in the chat. Greg said he's on the treadmill, so I think he meant he's on the treadmill so he couldn't explain. Oh, we got Laura.
Yeah.
She said, I'm guessing the reason people focus on inventing new ways to do the same thing instead of making concepts understandable is because the former gets more promotion and easy money. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. That's also what like I got as an answer why people are building wallets. It's money. So yeah.
That's how you get the money. That's true. All right. I don't see any extra questions. I'm happy to circle back to them if they pop up, so feel free to type them in. But Aces, do you think it's okay if I move to the fun questions that don't have anything to do?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So we're moving to the fun questions. Don't necessarily have anything to do with tech. Just like to ask these. But
Love those.
one, what is your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food. I think it's this dish from my grandmother in Indonesia. It's called rendang. It's based on coconut. There is beef, I think. No, there's beef and like a lot of herbs. And she cooks it just on fire, and she has to stir it for like 3 days. It's very meditative to see, to watch, to look at, and so it's great. So if you ever go to
Wow.
Indonesia, go find your grandmother or go find a grandmother that has been
Wow.
cooking rendang.
What do you call it? Rendan?
Rendang, yeah. Rendang.
And you said it's an Indonesian dish?
That's right. Yeah, I'm half Indonesian. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You're living all
Interesting.
over the world. Yeah. And it sounds like it's
It's-
well marinated and seasoned because it's been here for 3 days. It's getting all the flavors.
Mhm. Yeah.
My next question is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, I just talked about that with a friend some days ago, and he said, which I found very interesting because I always answer the same, but he said being able to read people's intentions. I thought that's interesting, but I think people are very self-deceptive. So it's what do you read then? You know, can you read behind those self-deceptions, or can you read behind, or just I don't know what they think their intention is. But I'm not sure if I'm convinced. I think I still stick with transportation or teleportation, sorry, because better for the environment. And if we could just teleport, it would save so much time. We would not have to use planes. So I think I stick with that one.
I think
Yeah.
this is the first time I'm hearing anything about like reading intentions, and I find
Yeah.
this quite the interesting angle. That
Yeah.
is quite the interesting angle.
That would be my second superpower, but I would still choose the one. I like to guess it, I think. Yeah.
I choose teleportation too. Like, get me there fast.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
I think
I'm stuck between. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Go
I'm
ahead,
stuck
go ahead.
between transportation, like teleportation, rather, because that's just obviously amazing. But also like splitting myself into multiple parts. So like I could have four ACs.
That's
One
a
guy
good
is
one.
playing football,
Yeah.
and that one is
Yeah.
sending messages to Angie, working on Web5. The other guy is watching
Mhm.
Netflix.
That's great.
You're like, I want to work, but I also want to play.
Now, imagine if I can like duplicate and then teleport at the same time. I'll be like 7
That'd be
destinations
crazy.
That's
at
amazing.
the same
I think we
time.
should
That'll
find
be
that out.
Too
amazing.
powerful. Way too powerful. I feel like if for the reading intentions, that would stress me out. I got too much anxiety. I would be like, oh my God, they're not doing it because they're nice. Like that would just stress me out. I can't do that. Okay, my next question is, and this was a hard question last week, so I don't know if you'll have an answer to it. What's your favorite meme or viral video?
It's this very old one. It actually is very silly, but I think that reflects my sense of humor. It was this video on Vines, and it was the fresh avocado one. It's just this. I think what it should write. It should have written fresh avocado. But then there's this woman that says fresh avocado. I don't know. I just find it very funny. I should all look it up. I'm sure so many
That is
it's very silly,
funny.
but it's very funny.
I have a new one this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say last time you said LeBron James. Which one?
Yeah, the one I have this week is from I think the Champions League videos, but it's like Henry talking about a footballer, and he's like, I see what he's doing. I see what he's doing. He's cooking. So I was like, that just applies to so many things. So yeah,
You gotta send that to me. I never seen
yeah.
that one.
I'll look for it. Like he's cooking, because cooking now is a slang where people like, or someone is trying to make something exciting. Somebody
Oh, right.
is doing. Yeah, so he's like, I see. As a football pundit, he's just like, I see what the footballer is doing. He's cooking.
Right.
So like,
I'll
so
look
that
that
is.
up.
I really like the meme. Yeah.
Also, the memes from web developer, I think on LinkedIn, I found very funny. Like they're always like making fun of just people that are working in tech or writing code, and like git commit, git push, and then try to hide for an explosion that's coming. So yeah, that's I think.
I love coding memes. I'd be like looking at them. I'm like,
Yeah, they're my favorite.
the one
there
that I like. Oh, you just sent the video. All right,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
ready to watch it. The meme I like, I finally thought of it because I didn't have one last time. There's like this video where or an interview where people are asking Aretha Franklin what she thinks of Taylor Swift, but I guess she's not impressed with Taylor Swift, so she did like a little bit of shade, and she's like, beautiful gowns, nice gowns, like they're like asking about like, does Taylor Swift have like good performance skills, and she just dressed nice. So I think that was funny.
Lovely lady.
Yeah. Okay, last question. And that is, what is your favorite Beyonce song? And if not a favorite Beyonce song, what's your favorite song in general?
What, is it Girls on Top? How's it called? Is that the one?
Love on Top?
Love on Top, that one's right.
Yeah.
Love on Top.
Catch your love on top. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, I don't know that one. But yeah, that's a good song. She be hitting all these high notes. I'm not even gonna try because I don't
exactly. I used to be a dancer, and I don't know. I really love also how she performs and dances, and that song is just really. I mean, yeah, it's. I don't know. It's just a very good one to dance on. I think so.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Okay, good. I can't believe you did so many stuff. You're like a dancer. You're like machine learning engineer, founder. Like, what else do you not do? Wait, Ace, do you have any extra songs you want to add in, or I don't know? I always ask you every week. You're like, I'm running out.
No, I'm gonna pass on that.
Yeah. It's like I have no more songs. It's been like 7 weeks. I don't know why my camera keeps turning off.
It's black now.
Yeah.
I thought you teleported for a second there.
No. Angie said, do your homework, Ace.
I'll try, Angie. I'll do my best.
I think I asked Angie what her favorite one was 2 days ago, and I believe she said Flaws and All. So that was a good one, I thought. Well, with my camera turning off and we're almost at the hour mark, I think it's a good time to wrap up. Zeta, I really appreciated you coming on.
Oh, yeah.
I learned so much.
It was great. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Is there any place that people should like connect with you or like follow your work or anything you wanted to promote?
Yeah, easiest would be, I think, my LinkedIn. I also have an email, which is my first name without the 2 dots on the I, dot my last name @gmail.com.
Okay.
I think those are the easiest to reach out, or my GitHub page, Zaida, but then dash in my last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll at least put the LinkedIn.
2 dots on the I, very difficult for the LinkedIn link.
And then this, okay, it's okay. I dropped it in the chat.
Yeah.
I should have collected them beforehand. Any last things either of you wanted to say?
No, just thank you so much for joining us. A lot of new information, a lot of learning from our end. So thank you so much again for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yeah, you're really knowledgeable. Loved it. I hope you have a great day. And if you have anything else you ever want to share, feel free to like hit me up and say you want to come back on.
Right. Absolutely. Have a great too, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.